if not, Frankenstein.
Frankenstein. This was the first
Yeah.
Frankenstein movie.
Yeah. Yes. And according to many sources, the first horror movie.
I love how anytime there's like a famous movie from this time period, someone will inevitably credit it as the first something when it is
This is
not.
this is the crux of our job doing this
Yeah.
podcast is fact checking these fools.
Fact
We're like,
checking YouTube uploads of old movies.
excuse me, guy from 2006 who uploaded this. This is not the first horror movie. Far from it. Listen to our podcast and you'll know.
Yeah, Frankenstein. They made
Yes,
a
it is
Frankenstein movie.
not just a Frankenstein movie, but a liberal adaptation of
Yes.
Mrs. Shelley's famous story for Edison Productions.
They were correct in that description. I mean, it's very recognizably Frankenstein, for sure. I mean, it's about
Yeah.
a scientist who brings a dead body back to life, and hijinks ensue.
Yeah.
But it takes some pretty big liberties with the Mary Shelley story.
Have you read the book?
I have not. I very much want to. I've heard it's very good. Like, I've heard it holds up extremely well. But I have not read it. It's also really interesting to watch like the 1931 Frankenstein movie is so famous and so like iconic. It is so
It's
ingrained.
defined the image of Frankenstein to
Yes.
us.
It is defined even beyond that. It is like the quintessential like horror. It's one of the like 3 or 4 like pinnacles of horror film in terms of iconography. It's like
Sure.
Frankenstein with the bullets in his neck is like the most. It is so pervasive in culture, you know.
Yeah, true.
And it's cool to see a movie that didn't exist yet. Like, they didn't have that baggage of like, we got to redesign Frankenstein to be like.
Yeah.
They were just like, no, this is our interpretation of Frankenstein because no one's ever done it before, and it's so wildly different from anything else I've seen.
Yeah, he's like a kind of it's a sort of a zombified bear slash mummy slash.
It's probably the hairiest Frankenstein.
Yes,
monster.
Yeah. He looks. I mean, he looks like Mr. Hyde, kind of, but like zombified Mr. Hyde.
Yeah, he's got like a big old head with a bunch of hair. He's got almost like a hunchback. He's got really long, icky fingers. And just always looks crazy. The monster creation scene is really cool. It's
no lightning in this.
No lightning. It's just like, I mean, I think the way that they shot it was that they built a sort of model of the monster, and then burnt it, and then reversed the film.
Oh, is that what happened?
And so you're seeing like smoke getting pulled into the body as it's like forming together.
Yeah,
and like pieces of it are kind of flying back up onto it.
It's pretty neat, and it doesn't look. I was thinking that some element of it might be in reverse, but it doesn't look so obviously reversed that you can clearly tell what's going on. Right? It looks like a pretty good effect. And yeah, it's going for like sort of an alchemy thing. Like, he pours all this stuff into a big cauldron, and then like heats it up in an oven, and then it's constantly kind of going back and forth between him like peering into the oven and then showing his point of view as the monsters coming together and being constructed.
It's more like the 90s creepy crawlies oven thing where you make spiders and worms with like the putty.
Oh, I feel like I vaguely remember that.
Yeah. I love getting some weird 90s esoteric pop culture references in there.
Hey, who said we're stodgy and watch old movies?
We talk about Sega games and creepy crawlies.
Comic Zone.
This was a movie where I think the intertitles were doing a lot of heavy lifting.
Okay, but here's the thing that I have to say about the intertitles, though. They're doing a lot of heavy lifting, but I didn't have a problem with it because I felt like because of the extremely liberal use of of intertitles and how short the scenes were in between the intertitles, I felt like I always had a very clear idea of what was happening, and it had a really great pace because the scenes were staying short. It was like giving you a lot of information, showing you a scene with I think a good amount of visual information, then back and forth and back and forth. And I mean, a lot of movies from this time, it's a little unclear what's happening at certain moments. And I never felt that watching this. And I think that was because of the title cards, even if it was maybe a little much.
Yeah. I do think there's a bit where Dr. Frankenstein is you see a letter that he's written to his betrothed, I guess. And I like how he just signs his name Frankenstein, not like Victor Frankenstein or like, it's just his last name. It's like, it's Frankenstein, you know me. He just goes by Frankenstein. I don't know. I find that very funny.
I also the first title card is Frankenstein Goes to College. And like and like I know that the monster's name isn't Frankenstein, but don't tell me that doesn't conjure up the monster going to college in your mind, Yeah.
There's a really cool shot with a mirror where Dr. Frankenstein looks in the mirror and sees the monster.
Yeah. And at other times it is a normal mirror, and they swap it out, I think, with a matte or a double exposure, so that the mirror is showing a twisted image on the other side. Very very cool.
Yeah, I think the single biggest difference between this Frankenstein adaptation and like every other version of the story is the ending, in which the creature is, quote, overcome by love and disappears. Which is, I think, it's taking a much more kind of like metaphorical angle with it, like sort of treating the monster as very much an extension of Frankenstein's own mind or personality, and then it's it's only by like accepting love into his heart that Frankenstein can like banish the monster from his heart, I guess. I don't know, and that's why it disappears. That was my take on it anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it is kind of going for a bit more of a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde thing, because it does specifically say that the reason why Frankenstein turned out messed up is because of the evil in Frankenstein's heart.
Right, not because of an abnormal brain.
Right. Picked up the wrong one. The other kind of cool thing, besides the trickery with the mirror, is that early on, when they're introducing the mirror in the scene, they're using it to show someone who's behind the camera, which, I mean, honestly, it's pretty impressive when movies these days do that, where he's having, so he's on the left side of the shot, Frankenstein's on the left side of the shot, and he is, and the mirror is on the right side, and you see him kind of looking off camera to the left at his girlfriend, I think, who is to the left of the camera, behind the camera, but you can see her in the mirror, and so you're seeing both of them facing the camera,
right? Yeah.
But from different areas, which I think Midsummer did that, and I remember going like, oh, very cool, Midsummer, you got this cool mirror thing going on, I like it, like you're showing two different people facing the camera, and yet they're facing each other because you got a mirror involved, and they did this in Frankenstein. I thought it was very slick.
J. Searle Dawley really pulling out the cool mirror shots.
Yeah, we were wondering what a solo J. Searle Dawley would look like, and that's this, I guess.
Pretty good.
Without the shackles of Porter.
Yeah, I didn't love Frankenstein, but it's a cool movie.